Hey, and welcome to my tutorial on super bouncing in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. For those unaware, super bouncing is a technique used to get a huge bounce forward on trampoline sections on certain tracks. These tracks include 3DS DK Jungle, Cloudtop Cruise, Music Park, and GBA Sky Garden. Now here's an example of super bouncing on DK Jungle. Now it may not look like a lot, but here's what it looks like when you don't do a super bounce. As you can see, I'm losing a ton of time to my ghost when I don't do the super bounce. This is a great technique for grabbing a top spot early in a race or maintaining first. Now, let's get into how to do it. So, DK Jungle has two ways of doing the super bounce, the safe way and the fast way. I recommend when you're starting out you do it the safe way because there isn't a huge difference in time between the two. So, you start off the race by doing your 2 mini turbos around the first 2 corners. Then, you want to do one more before the tree stump. And after releasing your 3rd mini turbo, you start a left drift and hold it over the bump. Soft drift where you can and hold your drift off the ramp, and right before hitting the trampoline, release your mini turbo and trick off the flower. And if done correctly, you'll get a solid launch forward. Now, here's how to do it the fast way. So, do your 2 mini turbos around the first 2 corners, and one more before the stump. Release your 3rd mini turbo and start a left drift, and hold your drift half a second. I usually let go around the peak of the jump. Then, right before hitting the boost panel, hop into a left drift and fully soft drift while in the air. And right before hitting the flower, release your mini turbo and trick off. And bam, you just did the super bounce. This is the one that I had the hardest time with out of the 3, so here are some common mistakes that are often made when trying to super bounce on this track. 1. You fly off the track and miss the flower. This usually happens because you aim too outwards before the boost panel and you get boosted off the track. The second one is when you don't get the super bounce even though you got the mini turbo. This is because you released the mini turbo too late. The timing can be pretty tricky with releasing your mini turbo and tricking, so don't get too mad if you don't get it on your first couple tries. Third mistake that is commonly made is getting the super bounce but flying off the track. This is usually because you hit the middle of the flower or too left of the flower and got launched off. This can be fixed by aiming for right of the middle of the flower. But with DK Jungle done, let's move on to Cloudtop Cruise. Now, Cloudtop Cruise's super bounce is easier to learn than DK Jungle's in my opinion, so let's get into it. After the race starts, start a right drift and charge up a quick mini turbo and release it once your kart is in a straight line for the boost panel. After releasing your mini turbo, start a left drift on the boost panel while in the air, fully soft drift. Once you've gotten your mini turbo, let go of your stick so that it's in the neutral position, and once you're about to hit the trampoline, release your mini turbo and trick off the trampoline. I know all that sounds difficult, but trust me, it's a lot easier than it sounds. But there you go, you've successfully pulled off the super bounce on Cloudtop Cruise. There's really only one main mistake that's often made, and that's getting the super bounce but flying into the side and losing all your momentum. This is because you started your drift a little early, which resulted in you going a little too hard left and flying into the side of the track. But now, let's move on to Music Park. Now Music Park has some of the easiest super bounces in the game, but for some odd reason I am just not good at the first one. But I'll do my best to try and explain them. So, before the first one, you want to charge up either an Ultra or a Super Mini Turbo around the left corner on the keys, doesn't matter which. Then, after falling, start a right drift and soft drift as much as you can. Go over the boost panel and before hitting the tambourine, release your mini turbo and trick. Now, the second super bounce is pretty much impossible to miss, but you want to start a right drift and hold wide for a bit. Then, once these tiny ramps are close enough, hold hard right and release your super mini turbo and trick off the tambourine. Now, here are some common mistakes made on the first super bounce. The first one is you go flying off the left side of the track and missing the tambourine altogether. This is because you ended up going too wide before the boost panel and as a result, flying off. The second mistake is going too far to the right and going off stage or hitting the side and losing all your momentum. This is usually because you hit the middle of the tambourine and held right a little too long. Now, the common mistakes on the second super bounce are either flying into the grass or hitting the wall and falling off. The first one is because you hit too far to the left of the tambourine and got launched into the grass. The second one is because you went a little too tight and ended up hitting the wall. But with all that, let's move on to Sky Garden. Now, the Sky Garden one is undoubtedly the most annoying one to pull off consistently, especially because the bounce pads on this map are really finicky at times. But here's how to do it. So when the race begins, you want to start a left drift a little before your starting boost runs out. Go as tight as possible while soft drifting and charge up a super mini turbo. Release your super mini turbo once you're around the corner and do 2 right hops. Then start a left drift. You'll have to soft drift a good amount to charge up a mini turbo, but try to aim for the middle of the leaf because this alignment works the best for me at least. Just as you're about to hit the leaf, release your mini turbo and trick off the leaf. That'll give you a good launch forward and is a good bit faster than simply staying on the track. Then, after you land, start a left drift and charge up a quick mini turbo just before the mushroom section. As you're approaching the ramp before the mushroom, do a quick right slide into a left drift. Soft drift as much as you can and then release your mini turbo before hitting the mushroom and tricking off of it. And there you go, you performed the super bounces for Sky Garden. Now, the common mistakes that are made are 1. You end up going a little too tight before the leaf and go into the off-road and lose all your momentum. 2. You end up going a little too wide before the leaf and falling off the track. And 3. You get the mini turbo boost but you don't trick off the leaf. As mentioned before, this is because you released the mini turbo a little late and are unable to get the trick. But also this track can be really finicky with its bounce pads. Now, the common mistakes on the second super bounce are pretty much the same as the first one. My main tip for the mushroom is trying not to go too wide as you might end up falling off. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend going for the first super bounce at the beginning of the race because oftentimes you'll end up getting bumped because the other players are also trying to go tight, and since the alignment is also pretty precise, there's a good chance you get bumped and lose all your momentum by going off-road and not being able to trick off the leaves. But yeah, that's how to super bounce in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This technique can take a while to get the hang of, so don't feel discouraged if you're having a hard time with it. DK Jungle is literally marked as my favorite track now because of how much I had to practice the super bounce. Either way, I hope this video was still helpful, and if there's anything else you'd like me to go over, leave it in the comments and I'll do my best to cover it. But until next time, Godspeed.